The moment Arthur Keene looked me in the eye and said, "My son deserves better than you, Daniela," something inside me cracked, quietly, but deep enough to never heal. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. His calm contempt did the damage. I sat there, smiling the way I used to when commanders questioned my worth, pretending his words didn't sting. He thought I was just another woman chasing a last name. He thought I'd stay quiet because I had no power left. But that morning, on his private jet, when the pilot scanned my ID and the cockpit lights turned blood red, Arthur Keene's arrogance finally met its match. Because the name that flashed on that screen wasn't just Daniela Ruiz. It was Admiral Ghost. I still remember that morning in Miami. The sunlight cut across the ocean like broken glass. The classroom had barely emptied when my phone started to buzz. On the screen glowed a name I'd learned to dread. Arthur Keene. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. His voice came sharp, clipped, and cold through the line. "Fly with me to the Bahamas tomorrow morning." I asked why. He said it was a family matter, that he wanted to see if the woman marrying his son understood what responsibility really meant. When the call ended, I stood there for a long moment, the silence humming against my skin. It wasn't an invitation, it was an examination. That night, Miami looked unreal through my apartment window, a city glittering with ambition, noise, and distance. 10 years ago, I'd left it wearing a uniform, certain I'd seen the last of arrogance dressed as power. Yet here it was again, waiting for me in a different suit. Arthur Keene, the man half the coast supposedly answered to, was summoning me like an employee. 3 meetings with him before had taught me enough. He shook hands only with people he respected. He'd never touched mine. Still, I packed a single bag and set the alarm for dawn. Fear has never been my compass, and if this was another test, I'd walk straight into it, not to prove anything to him, only to remind myself that honor doesn't need an audience. Arthur arrived at exactly 8. His silver SUV stopped in front of my building, engine still running. He didn't step out to greet me. The door clicked open from inside, and as I sat down, his voice came flat and cold. "You're late." I looked at my watch, 7:59. He didn't notice. He was already barking into his phone, negotiating something about contracts worth $100 million before lunch. His tone was smooth, mechanical, the kind used to remind people they owed him respect. When the call ended, he finally turned toward me. "Ethan said you were in the Navy once. What did you do there? Learn to fold sheets?" I kept my eyes on the road ahead. "No. I learned not to collapse when someone tried to make me small." He squinted but said nothing. The rest of the drive was filled with the rhythm of his calls and the hum of the air conditioner, each word sharpening the space between us. At the private terminal, his jet waited, polished to a mirror's shine. Arthur climbed the steps first, not bothering to glance back. Inside, the cabin smelled of new leather and cold metal. He gestured at the nearest seat. "Sit there, and don't touch anything. This isn't commercial." I nodded, fastening my seatbelt. The temperature felt several degrees colder than outside, the air too still to breathe. When the pilot approached to confirm passenger details, Arthur called out over his shoulder, "Make sure no one forgot their passport. I don't want to be delayed by paperwork." He didn't have to finish the sentence. I just turned to the window. The horizon flared white with sunlight, the sea far below blinding and calm. My reflection stared back from the glass, composed, unreadable, almost unfamiliar. The storm wasn't waiting outside the aircraft. It was already here, breathing between us. The engines hummed to life. The pilot walked over, tablet in hand, asking for passenger IDs. Arthur waved him off impatiently. "Hurry up! We're behind schedule." I handed over my worn plastic card. The pilot scanned it and froze. I caught the flicker in his eyes, pupils narrowing, the sudden stiffness in his hand. Without a word, he turned and disappeared into the cockpit. The door sealed behind him. A second later, a shrill alarm tore through the silence. On the cockpit display, Letters bled across the screen in red. Alert. Admiral Ghost. Priority clearance. Defense channel locked. Arthur shot up from his seat. What the hell is going on? The pilot reappeared, pale as chalk. Sir, your flight has just been classified under military priority. 2 Coast Guard helicopters have been deployed for escort. Arthur's jaw dropped. What? Why? The pilot hesitated, then turned to me. Ma'am, we need your code confirmation. I met his eyes. Admiral Ghost. Clearance code Alpha 7. The cabin fell silent. Arthur's voice cracked. Who are you? Just a citizen. I said. Some files are simply not for public record. Through the oval window, light exploded across the sky. 2 MH-60R Seahawks leveled beside us, rotors slicing through the morning air. The pilot's tone shifted from nervous to formal. We are under NORAD escort. Ma'am. Arthur glared at me, color draining from his face. Are you some kind of agent? Is the government spying on me? I turned to him, calm as steel. No, Mr. Keene, this is just standard protocol. No one's watching you, except, perhaps, your own conscience. He sank back into his seat, silent, breath shallow, and for the first time in years, I heard it again. The name I had buried with everything I used to be. Admiral Ghost, the title I thought would never resurface, had just lit up the sky inside Arthur Keene's private jet. And in that instant, the balance of power shifted completely. The cabin went silent after the alarm, heavy as pressure in deep water. Only the hum of the engines and the faint rattle of the fuselage filled the space. Arthur stayed standing, his knuckles white around the headrest, his face pale as ash. His voice cracked through the tension. Explain yourself. Daniela, who are you? I didn't move. You already know I served. I said evenly, served how? He shot back. Who the hell gets NORAD escort clearance? What are you hiding from us? I turned, my tone calm but firm. There are things not written in any file. Mr. Keene, especially when they involve lives that didn't make it home. He slammed his palm on the folding table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. You conned my son into this marriage. That's what this is about, isn't it? If I wanted to lie, I said softly, I wouldn't be sitting here now. The pilot's voice broke the air before Arthur could respond. Sir, NORAD requests an immediate course change. We're being transferred to a restricted military corridor. Arthur barked. I own this jet. Not anymore, sir. It's under federal coordination now. Arthur stumbled back a step, his breath ragged, fear flickering behind the anger. For the first time, the man who ruled boardrooms like battlefields looked small, like someone realizing money couldn't buy control at 30,000 feet. I refastened my seatbelt, slowly, deliberately. You want to know who I am? I'm someone who chose to serve instead of standing by while others fell. The words hit him harder than the turbulence. He said nothing, just stared. Minutes crawled by. Then the radio came alive again. Ma'am, NORAD requests your confirmation on Spectre protocol. They said you're cleared to authorize directly. Arthur's head snapped toward me. Spectre what? It's something you don't want explained unless you're ready to hear it. I said. He went silent again, pacing near the aisle. Then static filled the cabin, followed by a sharp new voice from ground control. Admiral Ghost, this is Command Center. We've received a distress signal from civilian craft Delta 42. They've lost navigation and are descending into a storm. Requesting immediate assistance. Patch me through. I told the pilot. Arthur's shout tore across the cabin. Don't interfere! That's not your problem. I unbuckled my belt and walked to the cockpit. His panic followed me, but I didn't turn around. The cockpit smelled of metal and static. Every breath electric. The voice on the radio trembled. We're losing altitude. No horizon. Autopilot's dead. This is Admiral Ghost, I said, pressing the headset close. Listen to me carefully. You're not falling. You're flying blind, but you're flying. Breathe. Arthur hovered in the doorway, frozen. The The green radar light pulsed over his face as if measuring his heartbeat. "Check your pitch," I continued. "Slight downward, pull 2 degrees up. Don't fight the air, flow with it. Copy, trying." Their voice cracked, choked with fear. I steadied mine, low and precise. "Look for the escort lights beside you. That's your horizon. Don't think, just trust it." Outside, one Seahawk broke formation, dropping to match the civilian aircraft's altitude. Through the rain-smeared window, its beacon shone steady, slicing through gray clouds like a pulse of life. 4 endless minutes passed. Then, a broken cry filled the radio. "Stabilized! We're okay! God bless you! Whoever you are!" I lowered the mic, exhaling quietly. The pilot turned toward me, eyes wide, voice reverent. "Ma'am!" Spectre line confirmed. "Operation acknowledged." Arthur's whisper came from behind me, soft and trembling. "Spectre line, the operation that protected Keen Logistics shipping lanes. You were there. You saved my ships." I nodded once, and a few others that didn't make it. His eyes glistened as he sank back into the seat. For the first time, the man who'd mocked me looked smaller than his own guilt. The jet leveled. Outside, the escort helicopters stayed beside us, silent guardians in the morning haze. Arthur's voice broke again. "I don't even know what to say. Sometimes silence is the only right answer," I said. Light pierced through the clouds, flooding the cabin in gold. The storm was behind us now, but its echo stayed, inside him, inside me, and in the air between us. No one on that plane would ever mistake silence for weakness again. The cabin felt heavier after the rescue, the kind of silence that pressed against your lungs. I sat still, tracing the worn edge of my ID inside my jacket. Across from me, Arthur leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the darkening sea. The light outside faded to a bruised blue. "That operation," he said quietly. "Spectre line. I remember that year, 2009. That's when my brother died. I didn't speak." His voice cracked. "His ship was attacked off the Florida coast. I called everyone I knew. No one answered. The Navy said they were investigating. I've hated them ever since. I know," I said. "I was the one who sent the final warning that night." He turned, disbelief flashing across his face. "You?" "We caught their distress call, but the signal broke apart in the storm. I sent every alert I could. It never reached them." Arthur froze. His hands trembled before falling to his lap. The anger in his eyes dimmed into something rawer. Recognition, grief. "You were there." "No," I said. I was in command, but I heard them. Every voice that faded mid-sentence. Every last sound before the static. Those echoes never leave. He looked down, the weight of 10 years settling on his shoulders. "I thought the Navy moved on." "We never do," I said softly. "We just stopped talking about it." Outside, the sunset split into long gold streaks across the fuselage. The light made him look older, smaller. "Did you ever think telling me sooner would have made me forgive them?" he asked. "No. I thought silence might spare you from living it again." He studied me for a long time, and for the first time, the distance between us cracked. Not pity, not anger, just understanding, the fragile kind that feels like the beginning of forgiveness. The radar beeped again, low and urgent. The pilot stepped out, voice tight. "Ma'am, a tropical storm has shifted. We're heading straight into the core." Arthur turned pale. "Can't we go around?" "I don't want to die up here." "What's our altitude?" I asked. 35,000 feet. The winds are pushing north." Lightning flashed through the window, rain hitting the glass like bullets. "We can redirect through an emergency corridor," I said. "But I need authorization. Only an Admiral-level clearance can open it," the pilot warned. I nodded. "Admiral Ghost. Priority override Alpha 7. Open key West Corridor." The radio crackled. "Clearance confirmed. Corridor opening. Outside." 2 Seahawk escorts rose higher, beams slicing through the black sky like guardian angels. Arthur's voice broke. You just commanded NORAD. No. I reminded them to do their job. The plane jolted hard. I steadied the pilot's shoulder. Gain 500 feet. Head northwest. Don't fight the storm. Ride with it. The turbulence roared, then stopped. We broke through the clouds into a blinding stillness. Arthur sank back, shaking. I thought money could control everything, but it can't control this. Not every storm is outside us, I said. Some live in the heart. He looked up, eyes wet. I'm sorry. Apologies don't fix the past, I said. But they make the air warmer. The sea below gleamed calm again, and for the first time, Arthur Keene wasn't fighting the storm. He was surviving it. Rain still clung to the metal skin of the jet when we rolled into the hangar at Key West. I unbuckled my seatbelt. Arthur stayed motionless, shoulders trembling, his breath uneven. I've never been that scared in my life, he whispered. It wasn't the storm, I said. It was realizing you weren't in control. He let out a broken laugh. Maybe you're right. My whole life I've commanded things, ships, people, money, and today, you commanded the sky. I turned toward him. I didn't command anything. I just made sure everyone stayed alive. Outside the window, a small unit of sailors stood in the rain. When they saw me, they lifted their hands in salute. Arthur watched, his face tightening with disbelief. They're saluting you? Not me, I said softly. The ones who never made it back. He rose slowly, eyes unfocused, voice rough. I owe you, and I owe my brother. I thought I hated the Navy. The truth is, I envied it for knowing how to give everything when all I ever did was count profits. I let the silence hold his confession. If you really want to change, I said, start by teaching your son to respect people without needing a reason. Arthur nodded, voice breaking. You'll give me that chance? If you understand that respect isn't words, I said, it's how you look at someone, outside. The sky opened in gold after the rain, like forgiveness finding its way through the clouds. 2 weeks later, Miami glimmered under its usual arrogance. Limousines, designer dresses, champagne bubbles catching chandelier light. The engagement party filled the gold hall of the Bayshore Tower. Every guest someone the Wall Street Journal would call untouchable. Arthur stood at the center of it all. The crowd, trained to follow power like heat, fell silent before he spoke. I sat beside Ethan, his hand resting over mine, a silent warning that something was about to break. If you know me, Arthur began, you probably think I understand power. The truth is, I only understood it after I lost it. He paused, his eyes sweeping the room before settling on me. I treated this woman poorly. I believed strength was measured by wealth and titles. But she taught me that real strength is holding your composure when the world falls apart. Every glass stopped midair. Forks froze halfway to plates. His voice grew steadier. That day, above the clouds and inside a storm, I saw the kind of person I hope my son will become. He told them everything, the distress signal, the emergency corridor, the woman, the U.S. military called Admiral Ghost. A murmur spread, then quieted just as fast. Ethan turned toward me, eyes wide with something between shock and pride. I felt the air shift, not with applause, but with recognition. Arthur lifted his glass. I once thought she wanted to marry into my family to rise higher. Now I see she pulled us out of the arrogance we were drowning in. He raised the glass higher. To the strongest woman I've ever met, and the daughter I'm proud to call my own. The applause started soft, hesitant, then swelled until it filled the hall. I didn't stand. I didn't need to. I just nodded once, smiling faintly. I didn't need to speak. Silence has always been my loudest answer. The sun was sinking over the Miami harbor, turning the water into liquid gold. I stood at the edge of the wooden pier, watching the ships of Keene Logistics depart one by one, their hulls catching the fading light as they disappeared toward the open sea. The air smelled of salt and dusk, heavy but peaceful. Ethan came up behind me, wrapping his arms gently around my waist. His voice brushed against my ear, low and steady. You don't have to tell me anything. I know what you've lived through, and I'm proud of you. I smiled, letting the words settle between us like quiet waves. Not every secret is meant to be hidden. I said, some exist only to protect the people we love. High above, a lone F-22 streaked across the orange sky, leaving behind a white contrail that split the horizon in two. The sound reached us seconds later, deep and distant, familiar enough to stir something I hadn't felt in years. I looked up, the wind brushing against my face. Some ghosts don't haunt, I whispered. They stand guard. Ethan didn't speak. He just took my hand, our fingers locking as the last of the sun sank beneath the line where sea met sky. The waves rolled in softly, erasing everything but the present moment. Somewhere in that silence, I heard my father's voice, steady, patient, and proud. Honor doesn't need to be seen, it only needs to be kept. The call sign that once felt like a scar now felt like freedom. Admiral Ghost no longer belonged to secrecy or pain, it belonged to peace. The world around me quieted. Money, power, ambition, all of it distant. What remained was balance, between the life I had chosen and the one I had been forced to leave behind. And as the sky dimmed to violet, I finally understood that the story hadn't been about victory at all. It had always been about grace, the quiet kind that asks for nothing, and forgives everything, 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 forgives